So welcome to all of you. Thank you for listening in, joining in. It is a fascinating journey to explore and try to understand, and more than trying to understand, trying to apply the Gita in our lives. So, as serious devotees, I'm sure we are asking ourselves that what we are hearing Swami say, what we are hearing the verses say, uh, you know, we have now, as we mature in our relationship with Swami, we've gone beyond that stage of exploratory learning. And as the Gita says, there is a big difference between Anubhav Gyan and Shastra Gyan. And Anubhav, the word means experience. So, in my own way, I've seen how whatever I'm given to speak on or choose to speak on, Swami ensures that I have an opportunity to practice, even if I fail, because in failure are the seeds of success. So I'll just start with a quick mention. When I was first asked to do this Gita session, being a very specific topic, it is not common to hear a speaker talk specifically about Gita and Swami's explanation of it, etc. So when the Bridgewater Center asked me to do this, I accepted, and I had several months to prepare. So I spent those several months reading deeply about the Gita. And then with months of preparation, when I went to Bridgewater, New Jersey, uh, several things happened. And I, as a typical person who is involved or over involved, failed to see the pattern in all those events. The first thing that happened was that day happened to be some big holiday. They had not foreseen that. So the crowd was very small. And when you put yourself, your eye in front of everything else, and I started to think for a minute, oh, I put so much preparation and there are very few people here. That was the first blunder I made. But nothing happened. That thought kept building up. The next thing was that happened is that Gita is very tough to memorize and to expound. You need background supporting material. So the next thing that happened was that their PowerPoint system completely failed. They were not able to project anything. And the big room that was supposed to be given to us was taken away. We were shunted to a small room. Now, as all these things happened, I failed to see the hand of Swami. And I was sitting down while they were introducing me, and all of a sudden it hit me that what is actually happening here? It's not important, or it is important, but that's not the only import of the event, that I speak and share my ideas and learnings and study of the Gita. But equally, the study of the Gita must be practiced by me. And the thing that hit me was that here am I going to talk about surrender. And the first thing I had to do was to proactively and purposefully surrender and not let these events even perturb my mind to the extent of one thought. And it is just His grace that before I got up to speak, I had this realization. And I wanted to confess that to you, because since then I've tried to keep these lessons in mind. And, it's not about one person sharing with others, it's about self learning and self growth. So, with that, I want to quickly take us to recap the last chapter that we studied. Fascinating in my mind, and I'm praying and hoping that some of you had the courage to go and reference some of the verses of the Raja Vidya Yoga. Raja Vidya literally means the uh, uh, the secret knowledge or confidential knowledge, as some of the writers have written. But it is very and it follows the previous chapter, chapter 8, which is Akshar Brahma Yoga, or the imperishable Brahman. Now, just to summarize that, I wanted to touch on these two verses, which says, Moghasha mogha karmano, mogha jnana vichetasaha, which means that us human beings, humanity, is bewildered by the material energy. You know, if you remember, we spoke about the manifest energy and the unmanifest energy, and I tried to explain to you that there are these 10 cycles of 4 yugas, and it's incomprehensible how creation unfolds. And when I go to think of it, why is Krishna talking about these things? Only to give us the sense of the overall landscape of uh, God and His creation, so that we can extricate ourselves little bit from the day-to-day involvement that we have. Otherwise, what is the hope, right? If we cannot extricate ourselves from the day-to-day minor things, so you know, when we say asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya, how can we put our mind on asat to sat when we cannot even extricate ourselves from the most minor events that involve us? To us, uh, certain things have a bigger than larger than proportionate importance in our lives. But when you go to think about the total landscape, so many yugas, so many times in which this manifest energy of the Lord is manifest and then becomes unmanifest. So what Sri Krishna says here, Moghasha mogha karmano, mogha jnana vichetasaha. This word mogha that he uses, that 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 is referring to the mogha means vain actions, vain, vain, vain thoughts, vain hopes, and baffled knowledge. You know, and that is beautiful because we are hinging our whole existence. We are pegging our whole life on several untruths, and this is what we are taught. So the Gita is really illuminating, but it may not be so easy to grow into and live in that illuminated state. So he says that in that deluded state, their hopes for welfare are in vain, their fruitive actions are wasted, and their culture of knowledge is baffled. And why is this all arising? Because we are baffled by this material energy. The material energy is also a part of the Lord, but it is just one fraction of his energy. And then he says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name drushyosti na priyaha, which means he tells Arjuna, I am equally disposed to all human beings. So do not entertain the idea that I am inimical or partial, but the Lord does expose one aspect of his so-called personality. He doesn't have a personality, right? But he says, but the where I'm while I'm equally disposed to all entities, to all beings, but the devotees who worship me and with love reside in me and I reside in them. And brothers, sisters, what I want to tell you is, whatever you take away or don't take away, when I am, because I am like doing, I have this opportunity to read the Gita. I read it every day. All the 5 days of the week I'm studying the Gita, because you may not believe it, but the way it presents is not a mean challenge. To bring these few ideas to you, I have to do a lot of study. And one common theme, I'm not complaining, and Swami hates complaints. It's a huge opportunity for self growth for me. But what I want to say is, I come across this theme in virtually every 8 to 10 verses of the Gita, that those who worship me with unalloyed attention, with undistracted attention, they reside in me. And that truly is the summary of the Gita. So to answer this question that Arjuna asks, which you can read over here, I don't want to read it, but Krishna is actually unhappy, and these are Swami's words. These 2 columns that you see are just taken from Swami's words in the Gita Vahini. And he asks him, why can't you keep all in the same condition? If you remember, when we come to Swami as initial devotees, everybody asks Swami this. Swami, why is there poverty? Why is there unfairness? Why some people have more and less? Look at Bhagwan's answer. This is from the Gita Vahini, exact words. And he says, he asks Arjuna, how you can have such a doubt after all that I have taught you? And then he says, I am the same in all, but all beings are not the same in me. And he goes on to explain that you have observed me during the cold months, villagers sit around a fire. But those who do not sit near the fire do not get the refreshing warmth of the fire. Those sitting far away complain that the fire is not warming them. So I hope you see the beauty in this. So what Swami is alluding to is, if you connect it with the previous thought about the delusion that arises from material energy, which means our hyper involvement in day-to-day minor events, though they may seem very mega events at that time, we are not able to get that perspective of life that, okay, 3 jobs I changed, but it is one more job. When you're 85, are you going to I often ask my father this, that how do you feel about the job that you held for 33 years? And he says, it is past, it is a mirage. So we have to use these types of perspectives not to get too involved in our day-to-day existence. And then what does that do? That is the negative. When we drop that negative, what is the positive of that? That is, don't sit far away. Don't be an observer. And that is the whole meaning of even the word Upanishad. Go and sit at the feet of the master. What is the meaning of this in figurative terms? Literal terms, it means, okay, go near the fire, you'll get the warmth of the fire. In figurative terms, in more realistic terms for us, it means give up your inhibitions, give up your doubts. Yesterday, I was explaining to my children, we take one of the 108 names and we dwell on it. And yesterday, I was just trying to give them my 2 cents about these 2 names of Swami, Sakala Samshaya Haraya Namaha, and immediately it follows in the 108 names with Sakala Tattva Bodhakaya Namaha. Sakala Samshaya Haraya Namaha. Sakala means subtle, and in both these names of Swami, Sakala Sakala comes. Sakala Samshaya, your minormost, your hidden, your subtle doubts. Sakala Samshaya Haraya Namaha. By worshipping the Lord, He will take away those subtle but nagging hidden doubts which prevent us from going near the fire and enjoying its warmth. And the second one, Sakala Tattva Bodhakaya Nama. In order for Tattva means principle, Sakala means subtle. So again, in order for Swami to teach us the Sakala Tattva or the subtle principles, which the Gita is talking about, He first has to help us, and we have to help ourselves by eliminating, reducing, minimizing these Sakala Samshay or hidden and subtle but nagging doubts. So this is what Swami is referring to here, and I couldn't help enjoy what he has said here because, this is so beautiful. Don't stay away from me. And I'll tell you, as a Sai student, there were times when my mind wasn't as pure as I know Swami would like it to be. And then what was the tendency to do? See, we were 400 boys. There was an inside bhajan hall and an outside veranda. And we could sit near the car sheds. And there would be sometimes that inner prompting that, hey, you can't go before Swami. Your thoughts are not pure. What will happen if Swami sees you? And once or twice I noticed some of the other people trying to stay away from Swami. And then I saw Swami coming and telling us. He would go back and find those boys and tell them, why are you avoiding me? Why are you sitting away from me? So that is the beauty of the Sai Avatar, brothers and sisters. He is talking to us directly. Just as the Gita is the constant dialogue, it's not only a teaching, it's a dialogue. What is the intention of this dialogue? The intention is to give Anubhav Gyan, not conceptual, principle related knowledge, but to help Arjuna to get that anubhav. And moving on, so how did, now we are going to talk about these two chapters, that when we say that Krishna wanted to give Arjuna real experience, solid experience, unmistakable proof, irrefutable proof of his Godhead and about his divinity, and then about Arjuna's divinity, that all comes from these two beautiful chapters, chapter 10, which is called Vibhuti Yoga, and chapter 11, which is called Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. It's fantastic because Vibhuti literally means the divine opulences or the manifestations of the Lord. So, I as a student often thought, I used to think that who are the Vibhutis of Swami? And I used to, in my own imagination, as I sat on the veranda, think, oh, I'm definite that Kasturi, Professor Kasturi, is one Vibhuti of Swami, because he was so pure, he was so great. That Loving God that he wrote, when I read it, I read the Loving God 2-3 times. I said, this Kasturi cannot be anything but a Vibhuti or a side manifestation of Swami, of Shiva. And if you see, if you read the beauty of the Ramayana, brothers, sisters, they say that when Shiva meditates, Lord Shiva meditates, he's constantly in his meditation, meditating on the life of Ram. And because he's so joined, so tuned with Sri Vishnu, who is Ram, he could not hold himself back. And seeing the pain and the difficulty, the travails that Lord Rama is going to bear as the Ram avatar, Lord Shiva takes the Hanuman avatar. And Hanuman is an Amsh avatar, or a fraction of Lord Shiva. But that's why the moment Ram meets Hanuman, Hanuman enables Sri Ram throughout his journey. So the way I understand these abstruse topics like Vibhuti Yoga, where Sri Krishna says, amongst the Vedas, I am the Sama Veda. Amongst the Rishis, I am Bhrigu. Amongst the seasons, I am spring. Among the mantras, I am Gayatri mantra. And so on and so forth. He describes to Arjuna how creation flows from divinity, and creation is having the Lord embedded in it through the best and the excellent that you see in creation. So in my own way, I'm just sharing with you how I thought that definitely Professor Kasturi is a Vibhuti of Swami. The Kalpavriksha, the wish-fulfilling tree from which Swami as a kid ran to that tamarind tree, and from that tamarind tree he pulled out fruits, he pulled out figs. One day the children said, Swami, we are very hungry, just give us some bananas today. He pulled out bananas from the tamarind tree. And you may, for those of you who are having a hard time believing that, Leela Ma, who is one of the great devotees of Swami, who was a PhD in botany, she worked in Madras University. She actually has put in formaldehyde, one of the rare fruits that Swami materialized from the tamarind tree. And there are scores of people who have experienced these things. So that I used to imagine that Kasturi ji, Sai Gita, because how could an elephant, have you ever heard a story like that? That this elephant would cry for Swami, this elephant would wrap her trunk around Swami and pour saliva on him. And Swami, who was the Sattva avatar, would never mind the elephant's saliva drenching his robe and tell us all, it's okay, don't worry. And there is a beautiful incident that when Swami was on the wheelchair, I think this was in 2007, the 2006, one of the boys tried to cover Swami's feet with napkins, some tissue. And Swami, and when Sai Gita was coming close to him with her trunk, and Swami said, no, take it out. He didn't bother about Sai Gita's saliva dripping on his feet, even when he was incapacitated in that situation. And Sai Gita, when I was in the band, we used to take our clarinet and go. Sai Gita used to come for walks in the Hillview Stadium, and we used to tease her. We used to play film songs, first line of the film song on our clarinet or trumpet, and she would not respond. The moment we would start playing Ganesha Sharanam Sharanam, Sai Gita would start trumpeting and raise her trunk up and down. Have you heard something like that ever in your life? So these incidents, made me feel that Sai Gita is a vibhuti of Swami, is a manifestation of Swami. While Sri Krishna is describing the manifestations of him in the global sense, like with Bhrigu, with the Gayatri mantra amongst mantras, but I used to feel that these great and noble souls who have incarnated along with Swami are really the vibhutis or the divine opulences amongst us. Anyway, so much about my own childish thoughts. But coming back to this Vibhuti Yoga, he says, I am the origin of all creation. So Vibhuti Yoga is not again a conceptual thing. It's a dialogue. It's an argument. Krishna is trying to get through to Arjuna and tell him who he really is and how Arjuna should look at all creation with the Atma or the soul at the core of this creation. And then he says, why is he doing this? Because he wants to explain that those who know in truth my glories and divine powers have an easier time getting united with me through unwavering bhakti yoga. Because the moment you see that, oh, Samaveda is God amongst the Vedas, Gayatri Mantra is Swami or Krishna amongst mantras, and so on and so forth. Then what is Swami trying to do there? Swami is to say the West laughs at the Sanatan Dharma, not really Indians, but Sanatan Dharma, because they say that there are 33 crore gods, and everybody smiles. Oh, what is 33 crore gods? And Swami says they don't realize that at that time the population of India, today the population of India is some 132 crores, right? Which is 1.3 billion. At that time the population of India was 33 crores or 0.3 billion. And the Hindus, the Sanatan Dharma taught them that each one of them is veritably the temple of God. So this type of wonderful vision that I heard Swami explain is the meaning and the significance of the Vibhuti Yoga. And then he says, so you can read here about Bhrigu, he says, amongst the demons, see, he does not, amongst the demons I am Prahlada. What a beautiful idea. Prahlada. So Krishna doesn't use the example of one of those nasty demons who killed rishis and who did bad things. He is setting such a high benchmark for Arjuna by saying, amongst the demons, don't even think the demons are bad. Amongst the demons, I am Prahlada, who called on me, who was the cause of my whole avatar. And he says, amongst birds, I am Garuda. Amongst animals, I am the lion. Among sciences, I am the science of spirituality. Okay? Amongst the sounds, just now what we chanted, I am the transcendental Om. If we are able to think every time that we chant Om, that this Omkar that we are chanting, Swami used to tell us as Balvika's children, these things are indelible in my mind. He used to say, what is Om? Children, why do I tell you to chant Om? Can you all take to the chat and see if you can answer this for me? What did Swami equate Omkar to, especially for the children? Let me see some of you trying to answer that on the chat. Any takers? Guess. What is Omkar according to Swami? Phone number. You got it right. That's the first answer and it is perfect. So just imagine how fun Swami is making our puja, our worship. He says, by first chanting Om. So I'm going to chant Gayatri Mantra. I'm going to chant Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha or Sai Gayatri or Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. But before that, how do I get through to God? How do I make sure that, hey, God, I don't want to be praying to you and I don't know. People say you are formless. People say you are Sai, but Sai is now only in a Samadhi. How do I make sure that you are listening to me? I don't want to just keep prattling here and without having proof that I'm actually getting through to you. And Swami says, that's why. First you dial Om and you dial it 3 times. And sometimes he used to joke when we asked him something and he would pretend, kya bola? And the boys, like I told you, many times my thoughts were not aligned with the level at which Swami wanted to be. So whenever we came back from vacations, many times it happened during my years of stay at Parthi, Swami would show that he's very upset with the students. And what would he do? He would go for darshan, avoid the boys, 400 boys sitting there with the birthday trays, with letters. Somebody's parents have come, somebody's father has had a heart attack. All these people waiting like the king's darbar, right? Like Akbar's court. People coming with their problems, with their requests. Like that Swami's mandir was. And he would just avoid us. He would not look at any of us. And he would go away inside. And he would give us this treatment. We used to call it treatment, for many weeks at a time. And it would be so nasty for us inside as we stayed there. We would think, oh my God, we are so close to Swami, but we have displeased him so much. And then as the relationship would thaw, we would gherao Swami. In Hindi, the word gherao means to surround like a mob. When he would permit it, see, everything happened when he permitted it. So when he would slowly start melting at our suffering, then he would allow us to mob him literally. And then when we would say, Swami, please speak to us, Swami, please speak to us, Swami, please, we have to literally be in a chorus. But as I say it now, it might sound artificial to you, but for us, you will not believe it. These ideas, these thoughts, these memories are what fills the bones and the blood and the flesh of a Sai student. These are the most sweet. This is the thing that embodies us. This is our life. As I remember now, I have not even thought about this for many, many years. As we prayed to him, standing below him, mobbing him, we would be perspiring and he would be having letters in his hand. He would say, kya bola? Kya bola? And he would say, Swami ko bahut baal hai, kuch sunai nahi deta hai. I have so much hair covering my ears, I can't hear you. And that would be the indicator that we can go to the fullest extent, because now Swami has melted. We knew. See, all those weeks he was avoiding us. We couldn't even get a glance from him. So this constant play of the avatar, this sweetness, this constant give and take is how he taught us. And I just took it off from that dialing the phone number Om. But what I wanted to share with you is this beauty of the relationship with the Lord is why he incarnated amongst us. And then the last one I'll talk about in Vibhuti Yoga is among secrets, I am silence. The biggest secret is hidden in silence. And while Krishna took explained to us Raja Vidya Yoga, or the yoga of the secret yoga of spirituality, that's probably one of the few places where he has broken the silence to reveal that yoga. So going further, he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam. That is, to those whose minds are always united with me in loving devotion, I give the divine knowledge. So with that, I will move to the most fascinating chapter of the Gita, which is called Vishwarup Darshan. Vishwarup Darshan. Vishwa, one day Kasturi ji, he in a discourse, and he's written this in Loving God, when Swami says Vishwamanta, so he describes this that throughout the world, And Swami stops him and corrects him and say, no, no, no. Vishwa is not world, though that is the common misunderstanding of the word Vishwa. Vishwa is cosmic. And then obviously the whole audience laughs, because here is it looking like Kasturi is translating Swami's speech, but Swami has to interrupt and give him the shade of meaning that he's trying to communicate. So translation is okay, but the shade of meaning is more important. So that is what we have to take away here. Vishwa Rupa Darshan. That through the common eye, we cannot see that universal form of Sri Krishna or of Swami. So that's the point I've put over here. These are the three summary points that I was able to make, brothers and sisters, showing this. When you go to a guru, he may do all kinds of great acts which may impress you. He may not do it to impress you. But this is a very noteworthy point. While a guru may tell you what are your innermost thoughts, he may be able to guide you as to the right actions for your future, he may cure you, but only the avatar, when he manifests in a form that you and I could relate to, can give you the universal darshan. The form, he can show you divinity in the universal form. And let us see whether Swami also fulfilled that or not. And the whole idea of the Vishwarup Darshan is to see that universal form. But first of all, somebody has to show that universal form. Is this something you can go and ask the president of a country? Please show me the universal form of divinity. President of a country has sway over thousands, millions, billions of dollars, and over billions of people, they obey him. But can you ask the president of a country, or the president or the leader of a world body, let us say, please give me a darshan of your universal form? He'll say, what are you even talking about, Ravi? I don't have a universal form. I am this person who studied in so-and-so college. I have a family. I live in so-and-so state of the US or Africa or wherever. So you have to take this Vishwarupa Darshan as a very special chapter of the Gita. Don't just read it that, oh, Krishna gave Arjuna some kind of darshan which I cannot imagine, and it is supposed to be a global event. He showed him all kinds of things which I cannot assimilate, and I move on. No. Then the whole purpose of this chapter will be lost. So here are the things that Sri Krishna said. You cannot see my cosmic form with these physical eyes of yours. And that is the question we all ask. Oh, I've done so much sadhana. I've done 1 crore likhit jap. I went to Puttaparthi 30 times and all of that. When can I see that form? So that is where, brothers and sisters, the most important piece of the Guru-Shishya relationship is to please the master. This is not a proportionate gain for proportionate sadhana. By doing so many years of sadhana or so many chanting, you're not going to get in. There is no such thing as an equivalent in spirituality. To get this divine drushti, to be able to see this divine vision, you need only one thing, and that is grace, anugraha. And when does the Lord give you that anugraha? Only when He is pleased with you. So you may say, hey Ravi, this is a chicken and egg situation. You are always telling, in English there's an idiom called counsel of despair. You make an argument, but it leads you back to a irretrievable concept where you can't make. No, that is not true. Because Arjuna himself is an example of how the Lord, pleased with the way in which Arjuna has approached his depression, pleased with the way Arjuna has asked Krishna to clarify his doubts, that sincerity, that willingness to put himself down. And as Sri Krishna says in the beginning of Raja Vidya Yuga, Arjuna, because you are not envious of me, I will now proceed to tell you about my secret. That envy, though we don't know it, we are envious of another human incarnation who says that I am God. And we put ourselves, because we have a human ego. And these are the words Krishna uses, because you are not envious of me. How could Arjuna be envious of Krishna? How could we be envious of Swami or Shirdi Baba or a Guru? Something for you to ponder about. But as we go forward, then when Sri Krishna sees that brilliant form of, when Arjuna sees that brilliant form, see how he becomes devoted. He says, Anadi madhyantamantar virya mananta bahum shashi surya netram. Which means he realizes, Sri Arjuna realizes that you are, and these are the words, this is the outpouring of devotion that he has. Having seen that brilliant form with 100,000 suns and moons and stars being formed, nebula, and all these words that have come later, but Arjuna sees it 3,500 years back. And he realizes that now I realize that your power has no limits. Your arms are infinite. The sun and the moon are like your eyes. Your fire is your mouth. I see you warming the entire creation with your radiance. And then what happens? Like it happened to all of us. So think of this as your journey with Swami. As you go along in your journey with Swami, you realize, oh my God, what a fool I've been. There was a day on which Swami passed me. He was giving socks to the students. And brothers, sisters, you will not believe it. Swami, who's such a humble Satguru, he never had any airs about him. You won't believe, somebody had given Swami some 2,000 pairs of socks. And Swami had people carry the socks, but then the socks were of different colors. So he didn't want to give those colors to some students. I think that this happened in the year 84 or 85, 1984, 85. So what Swami did, see, all the devotees were watching. We were about probably at that time 300 students we were watching. You know what he did? It was inconvenient to give those color socks back to the students who were helping him. So what he did, he put that sock like this on his own shoulder. And it was a red sock. And then this side he put a green sock. And then he still had different. So he put one sock over here, orange color sock, and a black color socks over here. And it was so humorous. That situation was so funny. But when I go back, I don't think I've ever heard anybody recount this incident. But it brings tears to my eyes to see that the Lord who came as Sri Ram and killed Ravan, who came as Sri Krishna and taught the whole world Gita, is so humble. He's so utterly humble. He didn't bother. What will people say about me? Will they take pictures with all these funny colored socks on my shoulders and my arms? He does not care. While he is that great entity who is thousands suns, thousands of moons, stars being formed, and all that you hear Arjuna saying, he is the humblest of the humble. And his only concern is not those suns and moons and all that, but his concern is how he can improve our lives by showing us the truth. And then, so Arjuna starts feeling very guilty. And he says, Krishna, oh my dear mate, I was ignorant of your majesty. And I showed negligence and undue affection with you. And if jestfully I had treated you with disrespect while playing, resting, sitting, they say Arjuna would put his lap on Krishna's thighs as a pillow when they were in the forest hunting. So suddenly Arjuna realizes all this and becomes penitent. And that is what is going to happen to all of us. Our understanding of Swami is very small. We have misunderstood Swami most of the time. And I'm talking personally for myself in case you are feeling hurt about it. But I know, and I cry. I break down so many times thinking that, oh Swami, where I spent 23 years in your proximity. But truly, though you were always giving me light and succor and nourishment and spiritual growth, I, through my limited wisdom, through my lack of preparation, through my lack of sincerity, most of the time I only misunderstood you. Though my misunderstanding itself has led me to hold on to you, but I wish I could have understood you better and not looked at you through the eyes of sensuality, through the eyes of sensual understanding, through the eyes of human judgment, through the eyes of scientific thought, because I missed the boat. That is what is happening to Arjuna in here. So use this verse as a prayer. Let us break down in front of our Lord, that great Lord who is the Vishwaroop is also that same Lord who is holding the pairs of socks of different colors on his own body. And his only purpose is to inspire us. And then Arjuna says, finally, in the 45th verse of this chapter, having seen, now he says, enough, O Lord Krishna, you gave me more than I could hold, more than I could assimilate. Having seen your universal form that I had never seen before, how could anybody see it before? I feel great joy, and yet my mind trembles with fear. Please, please have mercy on me and again show me your pleasing form. And then what happens is that Sri Krishna takes the four-armed form of his Vishnu incarnation. And then finally, I have to jump a little bit. He comes back to the Sri Krishna form, which is so familiar to Arjuna, which here Arjuna is described as being ignorant and jesting, playing, resting. He takes that beautiful form. And brothers, sisters, here is what I want to let you all know. Please pay attention to this fantastic verse. After all these darshanas are done, after he shows him that huge cosmic form, then he shows him the four-armed form with Shankha, Chakra, conch and discus and all that. Then he comes back to the normal form. And Shri Krishna says, Arjuna, this form of mine, this normal form, this so-called normal form, is exceedingly difficult to behold. And even the celestial gods are eager to see it. Neither by the study of the Vedas nor by penance, charity of fire sacrifices can I be seen as you have seen me. But that is not, he's not saying it about the, brothers, sisters, Krishna is not talking about the cosmic form. He's not talking about the four-armed form of Sri Vishnu. He's telling Arjuna, listen Arjuna, that Sakhya Bhav that you had, which you mistook, that you felt that, oh, how can I be Sakhya, which means friend of Krishna. Krishna is destroying that delusion. That is a delusion. So you and I often think, oh, Swami is just a symbol of the cosmic form. That no mistake could be greater than that. That is what Krishna is telling Arjuna in that verse. Oh Arjuna, but this form, this so-called normal form with two arms, me as your charioteer, me as your cousin, don't forget this. And brothers, sisters, this brings tears to my eyes, because it is a habit of our minds that we want some abstruse topics. As a postgraduate student, one of my aunts had got interested in this Nisargadatta Maharaj, who's a very great master, no question about it. But I used to try to read Nisargadatta Maharaj, and whenever I got a chance to speak in front of Swami, I used to try to mouth those terms, waves of consciousness and waves of awareness. And one day Swami called me into the interview room and he said, చాలా బాగా మాట్లాడారు, అందరూ చెప్తున్నారు, everybody is saying you spoke very well, కానీ ఇది స్వామి భాష లేదు. He said, and you know, that is, see, Swami, I had made so much effort, I gave a good talk, thousands of devotees had clapped. He called me privately and he dispelled my illusion. He told me, this is not my language. And brothers, sisters, what is that my language? We have to please Swami. Swami wants us to be his reflections. His whole life was lived for the sake of these few, I don't know, couple of million or few million devotees. It was not with any other purpose that he came. So when he is telling Arjuna this, I'll show it to you again. Very powerful thing which you should hold on to. This form, not that cosmic form, not that four-armed form with Shankha Chakra and all that. This form of mind is exceedingly difficult to behold, and you should crave for it. So don't let us belittle our experience of the formful manifestation of the cosmic Lord as the Sai Avatar. And I'm going to just move, because I told you in the beginning, right, that I want to show you these lovely pictures of Swami more than anything that we talk. Just look at this picture of Swami and what it will do to you. He was probably in his early 30s or early 40s, late 30s or early 40s. Look at that. Can you find a guru like that? And I want to take you back in the last few minutes that I have. I told you that when Sri Krishna gives this Vishwarupa Darshan, which some of you will have to read on your own, more of it. But Krishna is not ordinary, or Swami is not ordinary, number one, right? As you normally take him to be. Then there is the craving to see the universal form. But having seen the universal form, okay, you come back, then you're back to square one, and you have to relate to the master like Arjuna related to him with Sakya Bhakti, right? Some of us have think of Swami as mother. One day Swami played this game with us and he asked us, how do each one of you relate to me? And one person one of our students had lost his mother when he was 7. Said, Swami, I never knew the love of a mother. For me, I have bhakti for you as a son for you. So Swami said, okay, Vatsalya Bhakti. Then another person said, Swami, I often feel that I walk behind you and hold your kerchief and all. I feel like I am your friend. Another person said something else. So Swami said, all are okay, but remember that none of these relationships are true. And I am your own. I am within you. So that is the meaning of this universal darshan. This universal form was not shown to Arjuna to make him feel even more distant from Krishna. So imagine, try to assimilate what I'm trying to share with you, brothers, sisters. Arjuna always lived with Krishna for all those years. Swami said that this battle was fought when Krishna was 84, when Arjuna was 84 and Krishna was 85. So for so many decades they lived together. Where was the need to create an awe-inspiring vision and create a gap in Arjuna's perception of Krishna? But that is not the purpose. By showing Arjuna, who was so close to Krishna, but that was in the Sakya Bhav. But the way I interpret it is that Arjuna, while having that friendship bhav or that friendship feeling, did not adore Krishna, worship him, as which you can have only when you see that awe-inspiring form of Krishna. So he had gotten too close to Krishna. He felt, I am one with Krishna. I can order Krishna. Today Krishna is my charioteer. And as all of you know, one day he refused to get down from the chariot, saying that no, it is a custom that the lower person, the lower entity has to get down first. Like the driver, if you have a chauffeur-driven car, the driver has to get down and open your door. Same custom looks like applied in the war, Kurukshetra war. So seeing what other charioteers are doing and other masters are waiting for their charioteer to get down, Arjuna insists that Krishna has to get down first, in order of priority to keep his self-esteem. And as you know, Swami has said, Arjuna sat behind Krishna, and in that noise of the battle, how did beautiful, mesmerizing story Swami told us. How did Arjuna guide Krishna that he wanted to go left or right or straight or turn around? And that was done by poking the temple of the Lord Krishna by the footwear of Arjuna. So Arjuna would use his shoe when he would press it on the right temple of Krishna, Krishna was supposed to understand that he has to turn the chariot right. When Arjuna's shoe pressed on the left temple of Sri Krishna, Krishna would take it as a sign that Arjuna wants to fight the battle with, say, Bhishma or Drona on the left side of the battlefield. Can you even imagine this? And this all went to Arjuna's head like a normal human being. And coupled with the fact that he had this Sakhya Bhav, friendship, I am the friend of the Lord. I sit at the same level as the Lord. And I'll tell you some stories next time about this friendship with the Lord. But in my view, to break that architecture that had formed in the mind of Arjuna, and the way to break that was to make him feel the awe of the cosmic Vishwarup Darshan. Excuse me. And at that point, having achieved that, this great Lord who plays with us like this, and that is the beauty of our personal relationship with God. He comes down in stages. From that Vishwarup Darshan, he comes down to middle level, four-armed Darshan, which is still very glorious and awe-inspiring, but it's coming down. And finally, he comes back to the usual form of Krishna, which Arjuna is so familiar with. And brothers, sisters, this familiarity, this word familiarity is very important. Familiarity breeds contempt. And we have to be very careful of that. Because just because Sai has been so accessible to us, and you pray to him every day, so you say, okay, one more day I'm praying to him. No, don't do that to yourself. Every prayer to Swami, if you hold it as dear, as meaningful, as powerful, and you remember that he is listening, that prayer will be transformed into worship. And finally, the most important point is that familiarity is important, because as Krishna tells Arjuna, but this form, no, Arjuna, this form that you have with you, that you had for these 85 years, this is the most important. And now I want to end this whole session by telling you that showing the universal form is considered evidence of divinity. So what is the proof that Swami, this beautiful Lord whose pictures I'm showing you, there are many, many instances, and it was my privilege, it was my joy, it was my delight over the last few days to try to see that if giving the Vishwarup Darshan is a hallmark, is a qualification of a guru to say that he's a Satguru or an avatar, see how many incidents are there. I'm going to quickly read this out to you. Subhamma was considered the foster mother of Swami, and some people say, and this is the place where you can read about it, I can share the link with you. But as a child, Bhagwan once granted her this darshan. She is called the Yashoda of the Satya Sai avatar. And let this infuse bhakti in all of you. More than all the concepts, this love for Swami is most important. And remember that while it was not easy for Subhamma, who was from the Brahmin family, excuse me, and who was a very rich lady. In fact, she gave a lot of land to Bhagwan. Sometimes Swami used to stand on a table in the courtyard of his house so that Subhamma could have his darshan from the other side of the wall. Now, one day what happened, as she was in this habit of feeding Swami, one day when she was passing the cooked rice morsels across the wall, which Swami used to eat so happily, while feeding him in that manner, she had this vision of the entire cosmos in his mouth. So it is not only Yashoda who had that vision in Krishna's mouth. It is not only Arjuna who saw him in that awe-inspiring form on the battlefield. It is also our own foster mother of Sri Satya Sai Baba, who saw him as a little child. And brothers, sisters, we have to be very careful. That word familiarity that I told you, if you track the record of this Satya Sai avatar, how over the years he reduced the glimpses of the divinity. It's very important. So just because you could not see him taking out vibhuti from the empty urn or empty pot, you cannot say did not believe. Just because you didn't see him materializing the moon in the forest of Mysore and holding it in his palm, so many of our students saw it. You and I cannot say, oh, no, that didn't happen. So this is very important, that familiarity. So thousands of millions, billions of people have believed in Jesus Christ, though they never saw his being resurrected, him being resurrected. Similarly, our own professor, Dr. A.V. Lakshmi Narasimham, is a very venerable person. And I tried to introduce you to this concept of vibhutis, because these people, Dr. Lakshmi Narasimham is still there in Puttaparthi. He rarely ventures out. He taught me personally. I have gained so much by hearing him. And today, as I think that I even sat on a chair at the same level as this great man, makes me feel so fortunate. These people, he was a lecturer. He came to Swami exactly at the same time as great Raja Reddy. And both of them, their paths with Swami were very different. Raja Reddy stayed inside Swami's room, looked after him for many years. But Dr. Lakshmi Narasimham later on finished his PhD, became a lecturer at our college, stayed in Brindavan. And Swami had materialized for him I forget that tantra, that yantra, and he used to worship that. And one day this is what I'm trying to explain to you, that a guru, to lay claim to the fact that he is the avatar, has to have some qualifications. And I'm not saying it in a arrogant way, but I'm just trying to find the proof so that we don't lose these glimpses. So one day during the summer courses in 74, 75, Swami walked up to him and said to Dr. Lakshmi Narasimham. So in general, we used to call him Dr. Sir. He was not a medical doctor. I know there are some medical doctors on this call, but we used to, in general, call him Dr. Sir. Hey, did you go and meet Dr. Sir? Do we have Dr. Sir's class? He was a botany professor. He still is. So one day Swami asked him in that, see the humility of Bhagwan. Have you been able to follow the discourses at the summer course? He says, yes, Swami, they are very nice. Then Swami said, you shall see something more, and walk past to the waiting congregation. Next, that night in the early morning at 3 a.m., they used to sleep around Swami's mandir in Vrindavan. He had this unique and astounding experience where he saw Swami. It is not Krishna, Lord Krishna or Vishnu. He saw Baba appeared in the magnificent, glorious, gigantic form, sitting in the lotus posture on the ground. I was standing before him and I could see the width of his knee exceed my own height. I had to lift my head up a considerable angle to look at Baba's face, resplendent and beautiful. And Baba says, behold. And I looked then at his chest. And in that vast space in Baba's chest, he saw the space teeming with millions of stars, many of them being formed and fading out. And then the planets and the moons whirling past. Sky, and then oceans, mountains, ranges, industrial workshops, railway lines, skyscrapers, airplanes, and all that are found on this tiny little earth. The whole universe in him. So brothers, sisters, not only did Mother Subhamma have this experience, Dr. A.V. Lakshmi Narasimham, who still lives in Parthi, there were 4 brothers. I knew all of them. I'm so blessed. Dr. Lakshmi Narasimham's elder brother, Mr. Apparao, worked as the CFO of the hospital. He literally ran the hospital. I had thousands of interactions with him. His other brother, Mr. Murthy, was in charge of the HVAC system of the hospital. So as a family, they dedicated their life. I'm bringing you back to that idea of Vibhuti Yoga. Professor Kasturi, what is the point of thinking that Bhrigu, Sri Krishna is Bhrigu amongst the 7 sages? You and I are never going to see Sri Bhrigu Maharaj. Okay? So, but for us, who are these vibhutis? These vibhutis are Sri Kasturi, Sai Gita, the Kalpa Vriksha, from which Swami removed those fruits. Dr. A.V. Lakshmi Narasimham, Mr. Anil Kumar, uh, Dr. Nanjundaya, Professor Nanjundaya. They can be nothing less than the vibhutis, because as individuals they could not manifest that brilliance that they have showed in their lives. To stay so close to Swami, to absorb that much of his divine Shakti could not have been an ordinary human life. And I want to end this by telling you that as glorious as the Vishwarup Darshan is, for me personally, I'm echoing what Swami said about the Gopikas. You know, when the Gopikas uh, talked about Sri Krishna, it was a one-to-one relationship. It was not about big glory and awe-inspiring things, right? So while we have whatever type of bhakti, if you take the Navavida bhakti, Smaranam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaram, Padasevanam, uh, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Dasyam is more close to the worship because you put yourself down. In Sakhyam, and these are the most important, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. You know, for to take Arjuna to Atmanivedanam, he had to push him back to Dasyam little bit because he was too friendly. But the moment he showed him that awe-inspiring form, he said, okay, enough. Arjuna got it. He's never going to go back to the point where he takes me for granted. He got it. He understood that though I am the friend of Krishna, now I know who Krishna really is. Though Swami is walking around me with all those pairs of socks on my arms like this, I am not going to mistake this Satya Sai Baba for any ordinary person. Why? Because he showed Subhamma the universe in his mouth as a little boy. He showed A.V. Narasimhan, Dr. A.V. Lakshmi Narasimham, this great Vishwarup Darshan in Vrindavan in the 70s. And there are many more such instances. But you can see that as we came into the Sai fold, later devotees we are. I didn't see the Vibhuti being manifest from the urn, empty urn, but my mother saw it, right? So I have to lean on my mother's experience. I have to go to those YouTube videos and bow and say, oh, Swami, I wish I was there, and cry that I was not there, rather than say, oh, I was not there, so I can't believe it. So that is what is important. And I didn't have time to cover one last point where Swami says in the next chapter, the most important thing is to find how to please the Lord. Having come this far, you and I have spent thousands of hours dedicated to Swami. Let us never take a step back, but keep moving forward. Let our inspiration be at the highest level. And that is what I feel. That is the gung-ho feeling I get when, thanks to this session that Shubha and others have organized, that I read the Gita, because it is not an ordinary thing to come and present to you, but this is such a blessing. This is such an inspiration. This is such a transformation. And this is more than anything else, Anubhav Gyan for me, as I hope it is for you. Sairam and Shubha, back to you.
Sairam Ravi, thank you so much. It was so good to go over Rajavidya Yoga, Vibhuti Yoga, and then, of course, the Vishwarupa Darshani Yoga. Some of the verses, especially the one Sammoham Sarvabhuteshu Name Dveshosti Na Priyaha. I really am going to ponder on that. Beautiful, the way God is saying, I'm equally disposed to all living entities.
Yes.
Something to ponder upon. I'm looking forward to the next session, Ravi, of course. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Just 1 second, Shubha. I'll just
Yes.
take one. See, the
Sure.
next chapter is Bhakti Yoga. And
Uh-huh.
you know, the funny thing is that Bhakti Yoga is one of the smallest chapters of the Gita. I'll tell you why. Because there is a lot of cheating going on here. If I see it, all through the Gita, Swami has talked about Bhakti, as I showed you earlier also.
Correct.
So Bhakti Yoga, he has made it a formal small chapter, but throughout the Gita, what is closest to Swami's heart, closest to Sri Krishna's heart is that bhakti. So over the residue of the weekend, let us all invest time in cultivating that bhakti, that mad bhakti for Swami. Jai Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram. Thank you for some of the beautiful experiences. The Kalpavriksha story, the story about Sai Gita. I mean, very nice, Ravi. I hadn't heard that before, so thank you for sharing those.
Thank you. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram,
Namaste
everyone.
Sai Ram.